Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Tombyards and Butterflies, a Montague and Strong Detective Agency novel by Orlando A. Sanchez, narrated by Kevin T. Collins. I remembered my grandfather, my sister, and various aunts and cousins in their coffins and gone forever in the tombyards where the butterflies settled like flowers on the graves and where the flowers blew away like butterflies over the stones. Ray Bradbury, Zen in the Art of Writing. 1. What's more exciting than chasing a rabid werewolf in the middle of the night? Chasing that rabid werewolf in downtown Manhattan in the middle of the night. The village, as a neighborhood, was a warren of intersecting streets and dead ends. We had already been at it for 30 minutes, and we were closing in. "This is what the English did," I said as we ran down 6th Avenue. "Who lays out a city like this? A grid, Monty. Would it have killed them to use a grid?" "The Dutch were here first," he said. "The English didn't arrive until 1664. That's how you get the name New York." We chased it down Minetta Lane, off 6th Avenue. The wet dog smell punched me in the face as soon as I turned the corner. "There's something wrong with that smell," I said. "God, he reeks." "I didn't realize you were a werewolf scent expert," Monty said as he caught up, his long legs making it easy. "I'm not, but this guy smells like he hasn't bathed in a year. And did you see his eyes?" "I did," Monty said. "He seems to be suffering from some kind of reaction." "Reaction? He tore that poor woman in half. That's not a reaction. That's a full-blown infection." "It does seem like he's unstable," Monty said as he looked up and down the street. "Just a bit, yeah." We followed the scent to the end of Minetta and on to McDougal Street, when a large, furry blur shot past us. "Shoot it, Simon, shoot!" "What do you think I'm doing?" I said as I fired several times. "Shoot it harder." We jumped behind a parked SUV. The license plate read Rough Rider. The truck was one of those huge things that wasn't quite a tank but could never pass for an ordinary car either. I figured there was enough vehicle to protect us from the ware's razor-sharp claws. That theory evaporated, though. We jumped to the side as it sliced through the metal and plastic with ease, rendering our cover useless. The SUV fell apart like blocks of Lego, and I couldn't help thinking that Rough Rider was going to wake up in the morning and have a very bad day. "Really? That's what you're going with, Monty? Shoot it harder?" "Strong," rasped the creature on the other side of what used to be a perfectly functioning mode of transportation. "I'm going to rip out your intestines and eat them while you watch." "Wow," Monty said. "He's pissed. What did you do to him?" "Now would be a good time for magic," I said. "You know, a fireball or two, or some wear-melting spell." "Can't. He's wearing a null proximity rune," Monty said. "But I don't understand why the silver ammo isn't affecting him. You did switch out for silver ammo, right?" "Silver ammo? Of course I packed the silver shit. I forgot to switch the ammo." "You forgot, didn't you?" Monty said, exasperated. "We're out here fighting a werewolf, Simon." "I know," I said. "It's a little hard to miss." "I'm going to die," he said, as his voice hiked up an octave. "Out here on the filthy street alongside you. Wonderful." "No, I just misplaced it," I said with feigned indignation. "Hey, I had to pack all the bags while you did your meditation thing to charge the magic you're currently not using." Monty narrowed his eyes and glared. "Are you saying this is somehow my fault?" "I'm just saying a little magic would make this go smoother, especially since I forgot to pack the silver ammo." The werewolf shoved the debris of the SUV to one side. 5. Nothing screamed Dark Council hit squad louder than a bunch of people trying to act casually invisible. 200 Park Avenue had several entrances. We entered through the hotel lobby to blend in and make our way to the service entrance without being seen. Monty and I stopped in the crowded lobby and looked around. It bustled with activity, except for the pockets of men in corners wearing dark suits. I counted 10 broken up in pairs around the room. They may as well be holding signs that say, "Proud member of the Dark Council Hit Squad," I whispered to Monty as we made our way to the elevators. "This group isn't the resolution team. They're here to prevent escape," Monty said as the door opened and we stepped in. "Every entrance will have a similar group." "Isn't that overkill?" I asked. He shot me a look. "Are you serious? They're vampires." "But isn't that a bit much for one 5-year-old vampire? How dangerous can she be?" He pressed the button that would take us to the basement level. As the doors began to shut, 2 of the hit squad slid into the elevator and stood in front of us. The doors slid closed. As the car descended, I noticed they didn't press a button. "What floor can I get you?" I asked as I held my hand over the panel. The guy on the left moved, but I was ready. He shifted to the side, and I hit him with a blast of UV light. Vampires are fast, faster than I can track, but in a small elevator there are only so many choices. The light stunned him for a few seconds, while Monty set his clothes on fire. The vampire on the right opted for a more professional touch and pulled a gun. I swung the light around, forcing him to duck and miss as he fired twice. Monty slammed them with air and tried to force them against the sides of the elevator. It didn't work, and the charbroiled vampire took a swing at me. I didn't dare use my gun. Vamps were too fast, and I might shoot Monty. So I did the next best thing and jumped on him. The fires had gone out, thanks to Monty using air, but the smell of burned flesh filled the elevator. The recently cooked vampire grabbed me by the throat and shoved me against the elevator wall. I tried to speak, but my vision was tunneling in, and I saw spots dancing. Michko's words floated back to me about being immortal and still dying. I pulled my gun and emptied the magazine into the vampire. He smiled at me and began choking me harder. "Monty, do it," I croaked. "Do it now." He nodded and made a quick gesture. "Sorry about your suit." White-hot flames engulfed the elevator car, vaporizing the vampires where they stood. Monty had been holding back for fear of hurting me. The flames singed me, burning holes in my suit. My face felt tender, like after spending an afternoon at the beach, but I was unharmed. The itchiness let me know that it started healing immediately. "Thank you for not incinerating me," I said, feeling my throat. "I don't like wizards or any magic users, really. They're usually arrogant egomaniacs handling powers they barely understand. But you, Monty, I like for some reason. Probably because I refrain from reducing you to ash where you stand, like these two." "Probably. Why would they attack? They must have recognized us from Roselli's, or were given instructions to remove us once we arrived at the hotel. By whom? That's a good question." 6. A blur shot past us as the doors opened. Then I saw Georgiana. She stood about up to my shoulder, and looked like her picture except more on the feral side. Her eyes had gone vamp, which meant her pupils had expanded to cover the irises. It was probably to capture as much light as possible during hunting. I noticed her red hair leaned more to the orange end of the spectrum. One of the hit squad closed on her, and she ducked under the attack and raked her claws through his midsection, bisecting him. He fell in 2 parts as she jumped back from 2 more of the hit squad when they drew their short swords. She snarled as they closed on her. "There's too many. She can't avoid all of them," I said, leaning around a column. "She's quite impressive, considering she's unarmed," Monty said. I wouldn't consider those claws unarmed. They're almost Wolverine-worthy. Don't start. Maybe we can just wait until she thins the herd, he answered as the air around him grew warm. If they hurt her, or worse, I'll let Chi know you wanted to wait, I said as I checked the grim whisper. I'm sure she'll think it was a great strategy. Bloody hell, fine. Let's crash the party. You ready? Once I say hello, they'll bump us to the top of the victim list. 2 fireballs formed in his hands, and he nodded. I stepped around the column and began firing. Silver ammo didn't kill vampires, but it slowed them down. The upside of using silver was that it took a long time for them to heal from the wounds. The downside? It really pissed them off. Fireballs sailed past my head as I ran to another pillar for cover. I looked at Monty, and he just grimaced and motioned behind me. I turned in time to see 2 vampires close on me. I dodged a short sword aimed for my midsection, while the second tried to make me shorter by removing my head. I shot them both and blasted the UV light as they writhed on the floor in pain. Monty reduced them to ash as I closed on the armored truck and the target of the attack. The grim whisper is useless, it seems, Monty said as he joined me. Use the soul. I reached for the blade attached to my thigh, but hesitated. Can't you just barbecue them all? It would be much easier than using this. My flames aren't sentient, Simon. I'll catch her too, and then you can have that conversation with your vampire about why you didn't want to use the one weapon designed for fighting supernatural beings. Fuck, I growled and pulled out the blade. This is going to suck. The black blade seemed to absorb all the available light. Some of the hit squad hissed as they saw it, while others cursed under their breath. Michiko had given me the Ebon Soul when she discovered I was immortal. Something about walking outside of time and it being appropriate. Her family had held the blade for thousands of years. She gave it to me for safekeeping and to scare the shit out of the remaining clans. Its real name, known only to Chi and myself, was Kokutan no Tamashi, which literally meant the ebony soul. I preferred the Ebon Soul because it was less of a mouthful. Its black blade was 18 inches long and covered in ancient runes, of which Monty was only able to decipher half. It was created to fight beings not of this world, was the best he could tell me after weeks of study. I only knew it was effective against any supernatural being I came across. I hated it. If I used it too often, I could lose myself in a haze of bloodlust, which made me worse than the things I was fighting. A hit squad member pounced, and I stabbed, ignoring the searing pain in my arm as he dug his claws into me. The Ebon Soul siphoned its life force and fed it to me. I made my way through the hit squad, slashing and cutting those Monty left intact. With each kill, I grew stronger, faster, and less human. By the time we reached the truck, I was almost as feral as Georgiana. I rushed into a group of 3 and slashed through them before they could react. Their life force coursed through my body. I turned to face the remaining hit squad members, but they were gone. We were alone with Georgiana. 7. Most people consider karma to be an abstract concept. I knew her to be the mistress of bad timing. The mark on my hand exploded with light, and everything froze in place. Now? Really? I looked around at everyone frozen in time. This is not a good time. A burning sensation gripped my left hand. I looked down at the endless knot inscribed into my skin and saw the golden light run across its length. The smell of lotus flowers filled the room. It was a citrusy, green, and spicy aroma, followed by the sweet smell of wet earth. "Hello, Simon," she said from behind me. Her melodious voice filled the room and embraced me in warmth and comfort. I hesitated to turn because she loved startling me with variations of her personifications in an attempt to give me a heart attack. I didn't use the mark. Why are you here? I said, still not looking at her. "Turn around. We need to talk. This is serious." "You've said that before, and then sprung the death's head on me. We can talk like this, really." "Simon, turn around." I sighed and turned, ready for the worst. There was no way I could outweight her. She was Karma, and would win eventually. She appeared to be a young woman dressed in casual clothing, blue jeans, comfortable boots, and a sweater. Her black hair was short, and the smile across her lips reached her hazel eyes. She looked old enough to be a typical college student. "You look normal," I said, hesitant that she would morph into some nightmarish entity. "Why are you here?" "Normal," she said, looking down at herself. "No such thing. Reality is out of balance." "Excuse me? That sounds way out of my league. I don't deal in reality with a capital R. I prefer to stick to lowercase reality." "The ferryman is missing. I need you to find him." The look on my face must have expressed the level of confusion I felt. She never felt explanation was an important part of conversation. I just rolled with the punches and dived in. "Which ferryman?" "The ferryman. Charon," she said. "The whole river Styx and escorting dead ferrymen?" "Do you know of another?" "Why me?" "Because you are immortal, and so unaffected by the upcoming chain of events." "Well, shit," I said. "Did he just quit?" "Indeed, copious amounts of it. With Charon not doing his job, souls are being rerouted somehow, and it's creating a ripple effect. I don't think he can quit. Being the ferryman is pretty much his raison d'etre." "Still not seeing how I'm part of this. You need to speak to some of the heavy hitters. Have you tried the gods? Hades, maybe?" "Don't be dense, Simon," she said as her voice dropped several octaves, and she transformed into the Grim Reaper, scythe and all. Her flaming eyes fixed me in place as the bleached white skull drew close to my face and caused my heart to try to exit through my chest. "I'm the heaviest hitter of all. I need you to do this. The gods wouldn't know where to start." She morphed back into the college student and smiled at me. My hands shook slightly, which was exactly the effect she was looking for. "I hate it when you do that." I sat down on the sofa, careful not to move Chi while she was in karmic stasis. "I know," she said and laughed. "You're the only one who reacts that way." "No, I refuse or decline or whatever it is to take this assignment. Find someone else." "I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation." "No, you have the wrong person." It was her turn to look surprised. "Excuse me," she said, putting her hands on her hips. "I never get the wrong person. In fact, in all of history, I've never gotten the wrong person." "Bullshit. You aren't infallible. I've seen plenty of your mistakes, even fought a few that tried to kill me." She remained silent for a few heartbeats, and I held my breath. Pissing off near-omnipotent beings is never a good policy. 9. Supernatural Transportation, or SuNaTrans for short, provided a car service for the supernatural population. Because being covered in blood and viscera and hailing a cab, even one in New York City, the capital of the bizarre, will get you cuffed and sitting in an NYTF cell. SuNaTrans provided discreet service any time of day or night to any of the 5 boroughs and beyond for a price. The transportation they provided, and I use the term loosely since each Rolls-Royce Phantom was a tank disguised as a car, was the height in security. By the time we stood outside the Moscow, Robert had pulled up silently in the black Phantom. Each of SuNaTrans' drivers was highly trained. They could execute tight J-turns and other evasion-style techniques to ensure the safety of their passengers. The bottomless pit, known as the trunk, was dubbed Pandora's Box because it contained just a little of everything and was all designed to cause pain or explode, and in most cases, both. With a push of a button, Robert opened the doors as we approached. He was the only driver I knew in the years we had used SuNaTran. He was stockily built, with quick eyes and lightning-fast reflexes. "Robert," I said, and nodded when we got inside. "Morgue, please." "Yes, sir, Mr. Strong. Right away," he said with a slight accent. "Cut the formality. It's us, Simon and Tristan." "Yes, sir, Mr. Strong," he said, tipping his cap and completely ignoring my direct request. "One day I'll get him to slip up," I said to Monty, who had found the cookies, or biscuits, as he called them, and was looking through the selection of teas. "Won't happen," Monty replied, and chose some tea from the kettle placed strategically on the sideboard. He drove for a member of British aristocracy, a duke or earl of some kind. They practically invented formality. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I sank back in the luxurious seat and closed my eyes for a few seconds. 27. "You want what?" he yelled. "Are you out of your mind? And you're going to do what?" "I need to use the negation rune to defeat chaos," I said. No, the other part, where you break into the detention center, break into it, and free a prisoner from sub-level 4. I didn't even know they had a sub-level 4, Simon. Me either, but I'm guessing that's where the ferryman is being held." "You're guessing? You don't have positive ID on the prisoner in this cell?" "How do you think I should go about getting that, Ramirez? The level doesn't officially exist. Should I just go ask them if I can peek in the cell?" "Shit. Why are you telling me this? You know I can't help you," he said. "You're putting your hand in a blender and expecting it to leave you with all your fingers." "I need the rune. Once I get out, if you get out," he said. "This is suicide. Once I get out, I have to get Monty. He knows how to use the rune." "Get Monty? What do you mean, get Monty? Where's Tristan?" "Chaos has him, and I'm going to get him back." "Fine, you're going to do this. I'll give you the rune on one condition. I come along. If you say no, kiss the rune goodbye. Ramirez, you don't know what we're dealing with here. Chaos isn't a rabid werewolf we can cuff," I said. "Silver restraints aren't going to work on him." "Tick-tock, Simon," he replied. 6 a.m. shift change is coming soon, and I can get you in easier with my credentials." "God damn it, Ramirez," I said, exasperated. "Meet me at the center in 20. "I love it when you talk dirty to me," he said, and hung up. He was right about making it easier for me to get inside. It also meant it was easier to get him killed. Once I had the rune, I would find a way to make sure he was safe, but out of the way. I drove up the West Side Highway and cut across 34th Street until I was on 1st Avenue. I arrived at 38th Street in 15 minutes and dialed Ramirez again. "Where are you?" I asked when he picked up. "Down this street. We can't go in the front door, even with my credentials. The kitchen idea is a good one." I drove down the block until I saw the NYTF cruiser. The only way it could have been more conspicuous is if he painted NYTF in neon orange on the side. "Good thing you decided to come in under the radar," I said, as I walked over to his vehicle. "This doesn't say NYTF at all." "Ha ha, hilarious. You and Tristan should go on the road." He walked to the rear, lifted the hatch of the cruiser, and I noticed 2 large duffel bags in the rear seat. He pulled out one of them and handed me the other. Next to both of them sat the case holding the negation rune. Well, 29. The fireball crashed into me. The heat caressed my body like a summer day. My immunity to magic didn't extend to my clothes. My runed coat managed not to burst into flame, but my jeans weren't so lucky. I put out the flames and ran at the surprised sorcerer. He threw another fireball, and I slid under it, feeling its heat as it flew over me. I closed the distance, stepping over unconscious commandos as I drew the ebon soul. "I don't want to kill you, but you're beginning to piss me off," I said. "Enough with the fireballs." He was a lanky mess. His robes barely fit and looked 2 sizes too large. His hair was disheveled, and he had several days' worth of stubble on his face. I almost felt sorry for him, until I looked into his eyes. I was staring into the eyes of a killer. He smiled, looked at me with a cold, dead expression, and pulled out a blade as long as the ebon soul. "You're immune to magic, but I'm sure you bleed like the rest of us," he said. "Tell your friend to stay back, or I will burn all these men to ash." He kept his voice low, but the menace punched me in the chest. I looked at the commandos in the hallway. There was no need for them to needlessly die. "Ramirez, stay back. He's serious," I yelled. "I got this." "All yours," Ramirez answered from around the corner. "Never liked magic anyway." "I need you to open that cell door and let the prisoner out," I said. Monty had always said to try diplomacy first. "Sure, right after you kill me," the sorcerer said, brandishing the blade. So much for diplomacy. The lesson I learned from Master Yat regarding fighting with knives and blades was twofold: cut first, cut fast, or die. That, and expect to be cut. I stepped in and slashed across the horizontal, reversing direction at the last second and lunging. He skipped back and sidestepped my lunge while thrusting forward with his blade. I parried his thrust and hit him with a fist to the temple. He stepped back, dazed, as I kicked his knee and sent it sideways, shattering it and making sure he would have to use a cane for the rest of his life. He fell, screaming and holding his leg. I placed a restraint on his wrist, neutralizing his magic, and kicked his blade away. Most sorcerers were too dependent on their abilities to learn how to fight properly without them. No one said you can't punch and kick in a knife fight. "Open the door, or I break the other one," I said, as I crouched down next to him. I grabbed him by the arm and stood him up. I pushed him to the door as he fished out a black key card. I saw the iridescent runes on its surface as he placed it against the wall next to the cell. The door hissed open and slid away. Ramirez came around the corner with his gun drawn. "Is he cuffed?" he asked. I nodded and handed him the second silver runic restraint while pocketing the key card. "Put this on him, and he should be easy to deal with." Ramirez cuffed him and then placed what looked like a nicotine patch on the sorcerer's neck. The sorcerer collapsed a few seconds later. "What was that?" I asked. "Transdermal knockout patch," he answered as he started placing them on the commandos. "Go get your prisoner. I'll make sure they don't wake up for a few hours. Can I keep the restraints on him?" I nodded. "Be right out," I said as I sheathed the ebon soul and stepped into the cell. It was a large space, more living quarters than cell. A small table with a chair sat in one corner. On the opposite side of the room, I could see a bed. Directly across from that, I saw a small sink, and adjacent to the sink was a door that I imagined led to a bathroom. Seated cross-legged in the middle of the floor was a man. He looked to be in his mid-30s. His brown hair hung loosely to his shoulders. He wore a black t-shirt and black pants and was barefoot. Around the room, I saw Rune